So the biggest problem that I find with gray primers is the fact that reds, yellows, and oranges are really kind of hard in order to really get a nice, vibrant color out of them. Well, luckily there are a couple companies out there that make pink primer, which is supposed to be better for these colors. Let's get into it. So welcome back to the channel, Gunpla fam. Thanks for joining me. In today's video, we're gonna be checking out, I'm gonna be kind of reviewing two separate things here. One, we're gonna be taking a look at pink primer. Yes, pink primer. I'm sure you guys have seen black, gray, and white primer, but this time we're gonna be checking out pink primer. But also, this is gonna be my first time ever using paints from Splash Paints. So we're gonna be reviewing both the pink primer and just pink primer as a thing, as its own kind of thing, because there are a couple other companies that make pink primer. But we're also gonna be reviewing Splash Paints for the first time, just kind of my initial thoughts on Splash Paints. The purpose of a pink primer is supposed to be able to bring out the hues in the yellows, oranges, and your reds. So in theory, by priming a part that you want to ultimately be one of these three colors in pink primer, that part will end up being much more vibrant in the end. So we're gonna test that out. I'm gonna use a couple spoons here and we're gonna test out to see if whether or not a pink primer will actually give you a better result than a gray primer will. So in order to do this test, I used two clear spoons that I picked up from Walgreens or something like that. I did both spoons the exact same way, except one with the pink primer and one with the standard gray primer that I normally use. And then I also decided to go ahead and pre-shade one half of both of the spoons. So on the left-hand side, I pre-shaded the spoons just so that we could see a little bit of the color variation once we get our final color down. And then for the final color of the three between yellow, orange, and red, I decided to go with a red. I just feel like, red is something that kind of shows up more often than not. And a good red really makes a kit really pop. So I decided to go with red for my test. So this is my first time ever using Splash Paints. And I will say that if you're someone like me who's coming from mostly using Mr. Hobby colors or things like that, the Splash Paints kind of does have a little bit of a learning curve to it. I'm not exactly sure that I actually like it. And the problem that I really noticed with the Splash Paints is, first off, they are recommended to be sprayed at between 20 and 30 PSI. Now, this is really kind of high for what I normally work with. Majority of the time, I'm working from anywhere between 20 and 15 PSI when I'm spraying my paints, sometimes even lower than that. So if you're like me and you kind of work in that range, spraying between 20 and 30 is kind of a lot of air and a lot of paint to be pushing very quickly. Even though this paint is said to come pre-thinned, I did find some issues trying to push this paint through my Grex 0.3mm brush. And this is the first time that I've actually had any paints I've tried to put through my brush where the brush has had problems kind of spitting it out. It was hard to get this this primer to really flow through the brush without what I could only perceive as like a clogging, or it was hard to get steady streams of paint out of my brush with this primer. Now, I will say I was using about 20 PSI. I did try to use kind of on the lower end of that recommendation. It did become a little bit easier once I bumped that PSI up. But I'll tell you guys, like I said, I was really kind of uncomfortable shooting so much primer so fast. So what I did to try to, balance that out and make it a little bit easier to be able to spray this primer, I did add good old Mr. Leveling Thinner to this mixture. So I did three bottles to 1 bottle of leveling thinner. So not much. I didn't add too much thinner just because, you know, they do say that this comes pre-thinned, but I will say adding that 1 bottle of thinner to this ratio did improve the shooting, and it did, you know, improve the usage of this. So once I was able to kind of get that ratio right, for at least for what I like, I'll say, you know, the paint went on very, very well. It went on very smooth, and I think with that added Mr. Leveling thinner in there, it definitely kind of smoothed it out a little bit. So no issues after that. But like I said, if you're used to spraying at a lower PSI, you may find this a little bit difficult to first use at such a high PSI. I don't know, maybe down the line I'll do some more testing with it. I would like to see kind of how far I can get it thinned down to see if I can make it kind of shoot through the gun a little bit easier. Because like I said, this is the first time I've had any paints kind of struggle to go through my gun. So with that being said, here are my 2 spoons that I have here that I did. And take a second right now, let's go ahead and pause the video, see if you guys can figure out which one of these 2 spoons is the pink primer and which one is the gray primer. It's just bonus points for you guys if you can figure it out. But yeah, go ahead, pause the video, see what you think. So now let's see if you guys were able to figure out correctly which spoon is the pink primer and which one is the gray primer. So if you guessed that this one here on my left, right here on my left, is the gray primer, you would be wrong. This is actually the pink primer right here. And I know it may be a little bit hard on screen to tell, so I'm gonna make sure I do some like some different color grading here so you guys can kind of see as it changes. But yes, this one here on my left is the pink primer. And I will say in person, it is definitely a difference. You can definitely tell a difference between the two. The left spoon here looks a little bit more vibrant. You can definitely see where that red kind of stands out a little bit more. It's a little bit more like, I would describe it as like being a little bit more like bold. You know what I mean? Like you can definitely see the red just kind of pops a little bit better. Whereas over here on the gray spoon, the red still looks, you know, really good, but when you put the 2 spoons together, you can definitely see where this spoon looks a little bit more muted. Now, I also have that pre-shading on both sides, on both of the left-hand sides here of the spoon. And you can see even here, this spoon here, it's just not as red. Just not as red. Whereas you look at this one here on my left here, you can definitely see where that red reflection is just brighter. It's just a brighter color there. So looking at that right there, this tells me that it definitely does work. That pink primer definitely does give that color a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more body. You know, it definitely gives it a little bit more pizzazz. It definitely pops a little bit more. So definitely works. And yeah, I'm actually really pleased with this. I haven't tried this with yellow or orange yet, but it's said that this should also really improve those 2 colors as well. And yeah, I'm excited to check it out. So now, final thoughts. Do I think that this is worth it? So yes, I do think that this is worthwhile. If you're really trying to take your painting game to that next level, like I'm trying to do, like I'm really trying to get that, I'm chasing that immaculate paint job. I haven't got there yet, but I'm chasing it. If you're trying to get to that point like me, I would say that this is definitely worth it. I think, I can't remember how much I paid for these, but I'll be sure to make sure I leave a link down below for you guys so that you guys, if you guys are interested in picking this up, you can head over to Splash Paints and pick up some of this paint. And overall, you know, I'm very pleased with it. I can't wait to try it on some yellows and oranges. And I would definitely go pick it up if you're in the realm of trying to chase that immaculate paint job. Now, if you're just a regular day-to-day painter, maybe this isn't that big of a deal for you. You could probably skip this. I would also like to do another test with this to see how this works against white primer, because white primer kind of does the same thing. It's supposed to give you a brighter color on top. But I think for reds, and, you know, it may make the red look like a pink. I'm not sure. You know, we may have to apply more layers of red in order to get that good body out of the red. So I think that this is a good product, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you guessed right. Let me know down below if you guessed right which spoon was the right one. But that does it for this short video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to head over to Mecca Warehouse, use my code GU10 where you can pick up some of these splash paints from them. And shout out to my patrons and everybody else who supports the channel. Love you guys, I appreciate it so much. And make sure you guys like and subscribe. I will see you guys on the next video. Until then, be safe, take care of each other. Love you guys. Deuces.